My name is Olivia Hart, and until 2 weeks ago, I thought I had life perfectly figured out. My career as a graphic designer was finally taking off. I lived in a sunlit apartment I'd decorated with care, and my boyfriend, Daniel, seemed like the one. For 3 years, Daniel had been my rock, the kind of man who smiled and made the world feel lighter, or so I thought. 8 months ago, he moved in, promising he would start saving, start planning, start contributing. I believed him. I covered the rent, the bills, the groceries, telling myself it was temporary, that love required patience. But then, subtle things began to shift. His phone was always face down, always locked, always just out of reach. He was working late more often, but nothing ever came of it. And yet, I excused it, telling myself that trust was part of love, that love meant giving the benefit of the doubt. Then, one night, while I was cooking dinner, my phone buzzed. A message. Staying at Casey's tonight. Don't wait up. Casey, his coworker, the one whose Instagram he liked obsessively at 2 a.m., whose laughter had always sounded just a little too close when he described her at office parties. My pulse stuttered. Disbelief came first, denial second, but by the time I typed back thanks for letting me know, the reality had sunk in. I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I simply turned off the stove, inhaled the faint scent of burnt garlic, and began to pack. 1 box, then 2, then 3. His clothes, his shoes, his absurd collection of mugs, the cologne he claimed was special, the electric razor whose cord I wound perfectly, everything went into boxes. I folded each item with a calm precision that startled me, as though the act of boxing up his life could smooth the jagged edges of mine. I paused at his hoodie, the one he'd thrown over my shoulders on the first date when the rain had soaked us both. I held it for a moment, remembering, feeling the sting of memory, then folded it neatly. By midnight, his apartment was stripped of him entirely. 8 boxes, 2 suitcases, and a single note, Daniel, enjoy your new life. I loaded the car, trip after trip, hauling each bag to Casey's apartment, stacking them neatly by her door, snapping a photo for myself, a proof that I had reclaimed my space, my life, my dignity. Back home, I changed the locks, canceled his access to Netflix, Spotify, and the credit card he had been using without permission. I felt something strange, calm. Power. I wasn't panicking, wasn't crying, I was alive in a way I hadn't been for months. By the next morning, calls and texts started flooding in, from Daniel, frantic, pleading, his voice alternating between anger and desperation, from his mother, trying to shame me, insisting I had been heartless. I didn't respond. I let the phone buzz itself into exhaustion. Over the next few days, his attempts escalated, calls from unknown numbers, messages from friends and coworkers, even threats, but I remained calm. I had learned something crucial. When someone shows you who they really are, you don't argue, you act. And Daniel had shown me everything. One evening, I heard a knock at the door. I froze, half expecting it to be him, maybe with a new tactic, a new excuse. It wasn't. It was my neighbor, Mrs. Lacey, holding a plate of cookies, checking if I was okay. The kindness of strangers reminded me that the world hadn't ended, even if Daniel had tried to make it feel like it. Weeks passed. Each day, the apartment felt lighter, brighter, freer. I could play music without complaint, make coffee without calculating whether he had taken the last beans, stretch across the sofa without brushing against his restless energy. And then Marcus, my best friend and the man Daniel had always warned me about, texted, "Coffee?" We met. No fireworks, no dramatic confrontations, just laughter, quiet conversation, the kind that seeps deep into your chest and tells you it's safe to breathe again. Over the following weeks, I realized I could trust again, not recklessly, not naively, but in a way that was steady, calm, and real. I started sleeping better, waking earlier to watch sunlight spill across my floor, instead of dreading the possibility of him barging in, his anger or deceit waiting for me at every turn. I even went back to painting, something I had loved in college but abandoned when life got too heavy with stress and Daniel's demands. One evening, I poured myself a glass of wine and walked to the door where he once pounded, screaming, begging, demanding. I traced my fingers along the smooth wood, painted and repaired, and smiled. The ghost of him was gone. My father's words echoed in my mind, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Daniel had shown me exactly who he was. And now I had the clarity to see that I deserved better. Weeks turned into a month, and then another. Calls, texts, and social media posts from him dwindled, and finally, for the first time in years, I felt a kind of peace that didn't waver. I realized freedom wasn't just the absence of someone toxic, it was the presence of myself, truly, fully, without compromise. I didn't need revenge, validation, or to prove anything. I just needed the quiet knowledge that I had acted for me, not for anyone else. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. A month later, Marcus asked if I wanted to go on a proper date, not as friends, but something new. I hesitated for only a moment, then smiled. I wasn't running from my past, I was stepping toward my future. The apartment, now a sanctuary of light and calm, bore witness to my transformation. I poured another glass of wine, lifted it to the fading sunlight streaming through the window, and whispered to no one in particular, "This is what freedom feels like." And in that silence, for the first time in years, I truly believed it.